The Spider's Thread. One day, the Lord Buddha was taking a walk by the edge of the lotus pond in paradise. The lotus flowers blossoming in the pond were white as pearls, and an indescribably delicate fragrance rising from their golden stamens filled the air without end. The hour in paradise was perhaps early morn. Then the Lord Buddha paused and threw a clear patch of water through those lotus flowers that covered the surface of the pond. He looked at the scene below. At the bottom of the lotus pond in paradise was hell, and through the crystal clear water could be seen, as though a peep show, such sights as the river of death and the mountain of needles. Almost immediately, the Lord Buddha noticed a man named Khandata writhing in the midst of other sinners. This man Khandata had been a great thief and had done many wicked deeds on earth, killing men and burning houses. Yet even he had once acted with kindness. One day, when walking through a thick forest, he saw a little spider crawling along his path. He lifted his foot and was about to crush it to death, when suddenly he changed his mind. "No," he said to himself, "I must not. Even a little creature such as this has life, and to kill it without cause would be a great pity." And so he spared the life of the spider. The Lord Buddha, as he looked at the scene in hell, remembered Khandata's kindness to the spider, and he thought that he should save Khandata if he could, in return for his one good deed. Fortunately, beside him on a lotus leaf the color of dark jade, a spider in paradise was weaving a silvery web. The Lord Buddha picked up the spider gently and began to let it down between the pearl-white flowers, straight towards hell far beneath. Meanwhile, Khandata, with other sinners, was struggling to keep afloat in the lake of blood, which was in the lowest depths of hell. All was darkness except for an occasional ghostly glimmer of half-light coming from the fearful mountain of needles. The quiet was like that of a graveyard, and the only sound that could be heard was the faint sighing of the sinners. Perhaps those that had come so far down in hell had gone through too many torments to have any strength left for loud cries of self-pity. And in the lake of blood, even the great thief Khandata could only writhe and choke like a dying frog. But it so happened that Khandata, in the midst of his suffering, raised his head and looked towards the sky above the lake. And he saw, descending gradually towards him in a straight, shimmering line, as though fearful of being seen by man's eyes, the silvery thread of the spider. It seemed to come from far, far above through the silent darkness. Khandata clapped his hands for joy. Surely, he thought, if he could once get hold of the thread and climb it far enough, he would eventually get out of hell. With luck, he might even reach paradise, and then he would no more be chased up the mountain of needles, or be pushed down into the lake of blood. With this hope in his heart, he reached for the thread, and grasping it firmly with both hands, he began to climb up, and up with all his might. Having once been a burglar, he was a skillful climber. But the ascent was by no means an easy one, for thousands of miles separated paradise from hell. After a time, Khandata grew very tired and could climb no more. Reluctantly, he paused to rest, and still clinging firmly to the thread, he looked down into the depths below. He must have come a long way up indeed, for already the lake of blood was no longer visible, and even the top of the dully gleaming mountain of needles was beneath him. At this rate, he thought, getting out of hell might not be so difficult after all. In a tone of voice he had not used for many a year, he cried, "Good, good," and began to laugh. Then suddenly he espied far below a procession of sinners, numberless as a column of ants, coming after him up the spider's thread. For a while, Kandata, struck dumb with amazement and fear, could only stare opened mouth at the scene. How could such a thin spider's thread, which seemed too fragile to bear the weight of one man, bear the added burden of so many others? And if the thread did break, he would drop straight back into hell. And as such frightening thoughts passed through his mind, hundreds, nay thousands more sinners were crawling out of the darkness of the lake of blood, and were climbing up the thread. Unless Kandata stopped them, the thread would surely break in the middle, and they would all fall. And so Kandata, with a loud voice, began to scream at his fellow sinners. "Listen to me, you sinners! This spider's thread is mine! Who said you could come up after me? Get off! Get off!" It was at this moment that the spider's thread, which until then had shown no signs of breaking, snapped just above Kandata's clean hands. Spinning round and round through the air like a top, Kandata's body plunged into darkness. All that now remained in the moonless and starless sky was the thin thread of the spider of paradise, shimmering softly in the dark. The Lord Buddha, standing by the lotus pond of paradise, saw all that passed below, and when at last the body of Kandata had sunk like a stone to the bottom of the lake of blood, he resumed his walk, sadly, for there was probably much pity in the Lord Buddha's heart for Kandata, who was sent back to hell for his heartlessness. But the pearl-white flowers in the lotus pond of paradise, innocent of wickedness or sorrow, swayed gently about the feet of the Lord Buddha, and from the golden stamens there came the same delicate fragrance, filling the air as always. The hour in paradise was perhaps near noon. A Dead Secret by Lafcadio Hearn. A long time ago, in the province of Tamba, there lived a rich merchant named Inamura Gensuke. He had a daughter called Osono, and she was very clever and pretty. He thought it would be a pity to let her grow up with only such teaching as the country teachers could give her, so he sent her in care of some trusty attendants to Kyoto, that she might be trained in the polite accomplishments taught to the ladies of the capital. After she had thus been educated, she was married to a friend of her father's family, a merchant named Nagarara, and she lived happily with him for nearly 4 years. They had one child, a boy, but Osono fell ill and died on the 4th year after her marriage. On the night after the funeral of Osono, her little son said that his mama had come back and was in the room upstairs. She had smiled at him but would not talk to him, so he became afraid and ran away. Then some of the family went upstairs to the room which had been Osono's, and they were startled to see but the light of a small lamp which had been kindled before a shrine in that room, the figure of the dead mother. She appeared as if standing in front of a tansu, or chest of drawers, that still contained her ornaments and her wearing apparel. Her head and shoulders could be very distinctively seen, but from the waist downwards the figure thinned into invisibility. It was like an imperfect reflection of her, and transparent as the shadow on water. Then the folk were afraid and left the room. Below they consulted together, and the mother of Osanu's husband said, "A woman is fond of her small things, and Osano was much attached to her belongings. Perhaps she has come back to look at them. Many dead persons will do that, unless the things given to the parish temple. If we present Osano's robes and girdles to the temple, her spirit will probably find rest." It was agreed that this should be done as soon as possible. So on the following morning, the drawers were emptied and all of Osano's ornaments and dresses were taken to the temple. But she came back the next night and looked at the tansu as before, and she came back also on the night following, and the night after that, and every night, and the house became a house of fear. The mother of Osano's husband then went to the parish temple and told the chief priests all that had happened and asked for ghostly counsel. The temple was a Zen temple, and the head priest was a learned old man known as Daigen Osho. He said, "There must be something about which she is anxious, in or near that tansu." "But we emptied all the drawers," replied the woman. "There is nothing in the tansu." "Well," said Daigen Osho, "tonight I shall go to your house and keep watch in that room and see what can be done. You must give orders that no person shall enter the room while I am watching, unless I call." After sundown, Daigen Osho went to the house and found the room made ready for him. He remained there alone, reading the sutras, and nothing appeared until after the hour of the rat. Then the figure of Osano suddenly outlined itself in front of the tansu. Her face had a wistful look, and she kept her eyes fixed upon the tansu. The priest uttered the holy formula prescribed in such cases, and then, addressing the figure of the Kamiyo of Osono, said, "I have come here in order to help you. Perhaps in that tansu there is something about which you have a reason to feel anxious. Shall I try to find it for you?" The shadow appeared to give assent by a slight motion of the head, and the priest, rising, opened the top drawer. It was empty. Successively he opened the second, the third, and the fourth drawer. He searched carefully behind them and beneath them. He carefully examined the interior of the chest, but he found nothing. The figure remained gazing as wistfully as before. "What can she want?" thought the priest. Suddenly it occurred to him that there might be something hidden under the paper with which the drawers were lined. He removed the lining of the first drawer. Nothing. He removed the lining of the second and the third drawers. Still nothing. But under the lining of the lowermost drawer he found a letter. "Is this the thing about which you have been troubled?" he asked. The shadow of the woman turned towards him, her faint gaze fixed upon the letter. "Shall I burn it for you?" he asked. She bowed before him. "It shall be burned in the temple this very morning," he promised, "and no one shall read it, except myself." The figure smiled and vanished. Dawn was breaking as the priest descended the stairs to find the family waiting anxiously below. "Do not be anxious," he said to them. "She will not appear again." And she never did. The letter was burned. It was a love letter written to Osono in the time of her studies at Kyoto. But the priest alone knew what was in it, and the secret died with him. The Screen-Maiden by Lafcadio Hearn. In Chinese and in Japanese books there are related many stories, both of ancient and of modern times, about pictures that were so beautiful as to exercise a magical influence upon the beholder. And concerning such beautiful pictures, and whether pictures of flowers or of birds or of people, painted by famous artists, it is further told the shapes of the creatures or the persons therein depicted would separate themselves from the paper or the silk upon which they had been painted, and would perform various acts, so that they became, by their own will, really alive. We shall not now repeat any of the stories of this class, which have been known to everybody since ancient times. But even in modern times, the fame of the pictures painted by Hishigawa Kichibe, Hichigawa's portraits, have become widespread in the land. There was a young scholar of Kyoto whose name was Toke. He used to live in a street called Muromachi. One evening, while on his way home after a visit, his attention was attracted by a single leaf screen, a suitate, exposed for sale before the shop of a dealer of second-hand goods. It was only a paper-covered screen, but there was painted upon it the full-length figure of a girl which caught the young man's fancy. The price asked was very small. Toke bought the screen and took it home with him. When he looked again at the screen, in the solitude of his own room, the picture seemed to him even more beautiful than before. Apparently it was a real likeness, the portrait of a girl 15 or 16 years old, and every little detail in the painting of the hair, eyes, eyelashes, mouth had been executed with a delicacy and a truth beyond praise. The corner of her eye seemed like a lotus blossom courting favor. The lips were like the smile of a red flower. The whole young face was inexpressibly sweet. If the real girl so portrayed had been equally lovely, no man could have looked upon her without losing his heart. And Toke believed that she must have been thus lovely, for the figure seemed alive, ready to reply to anyone who might speak to it. Gradually, as he continued to gaze at the picture, he found himself bewitched by the charm of it. Can there really have been in this world, he murmured to himself, so delicious a creature? How gladly I would give my life, nay, 1,000 years of life to hold her in my arms even for a moment. In short, he became enamored of the picture, so much enamored of it as to feel that he could never love any woman except the person whom it represented. Yet that person, if still alive, could no longer resemble the painting. Perhaps she had been buried long before he was even born. Day by day, nevertheless, this hopeless passion grew upon him. He could not eat, he could not sleep, neither could he occupy his mind with those studies which had formerly delighted him. He would sit for hours before the picture, talking to it, neglecting or forgetting everything else. And at last he fell sick, so sick that he believed himself going to die. Now among the friends of Toke there was one venerable scholar who knew many strange things about old pictures and about young hearts. This aged scholar, hearing of Toke's illness, came to visit him and saw the screen and understood what had happened. Then Toke, being questioned, confessed everything to his friend and declared, "If I cannot find such a woman, I shall die." The old man said, "That picture was painted by Hishigawa Kichibe, painted from life. The person whom it represented is now not in the world, but it is said that Hichigawa Kichibe painted her mind as well as her form, and that her spirit lives in the picture. So, I think that you can win her." Tokei half rose from his bed and stared eagerly at the speaker. "You must give her a name," the old man continued, "and you must sit before her picture every day and keep your thoughts constantly fixed upon her, and call her gently by the name which you have given her, until she answers you." "Answers me?" exclaimed the lover in breathless amazement. "Oh yes," the advisor responded. "She will certainly answer you, but you must be ready, when she answers you, to present her with what I am going to tell you." "I will give her my life!" cried Tokei. "No," said the old man. "You will present her with a cup of wine that has been bought at 100 different wine shops. Then she will come out of the screen to accept the wine. After that, probably she herself will tell you what to do." With these words, the old man went away. His advice aroused Tokei from despair. At once, he seated himself before the picture and called it by the name of a girl. What name the Japanese narrator has forgotten to tell us, over and over again, very tenderly. That day it made no answer, nor the next day, nor the next. But Tokei did not lose faith or patience, and after many days, it suddenly one evening answered to its name. "Yes?" Then quickly, some of the wine from 100 different wine shops was poured out and reverentially presented in a little cup. And the girl stepped from the screen and walked upon the matting of the room and knelt to take the cup from Tokei's hand, asking with a delicious smile, "How could you love me so much?" Says the Japanese narrator. "She was more beautiful than the picture, beautiful to the tips of her fingernails, beautiful also in heart and temper, lovelier than anybody else in the world." What answer Tokei made to her question is not recorded. It will have to be imagined. "But will you not soon get tired of me?" she asked. "Never will I live," he protested. "And after?" she persisted. For the Japanese bride is not satisfied with love from one lifetime only. "Let us pledge ourselves to each other," he entreated, "for the time of 7 existences." "If you are ever unkind to me," she said, "I will go back to the screen." They pledged each other. I suppose that Tokei was a good boy, for his bride never returned to the screen. The space that she had occupied upon it remained a blank.